I've mentioned overfitting before, but I haven't yet defined it. Before we could define it and I could give you an example, we needed to have a definition of error. Let me now show you what I mean. Let's consider parameterized polynomial models where we can, one at a time, add additional factors like x, x squared, x cubed, x to the fourth, and so on. Let's create a graph where we have along the horizontal axis degrees of freedom, or d, the degree of our polynomial, and vertically here we'll have the error of our model. So let's measure error as we increase d on our training set. So when d is smallest, our error is greatest. And as we increase d, our error drops and drops and drops. In other words, we're fitting the data in sample better and better. When finally we get to n, where we have as many parameters in our model as we do have items in our data set, our error gets all the way down to 0. This is in-sample error. Now let's add a similar line for out-of-sample error. Remember that we expect our out-of-sample error to always be greater than or equal to in-sample error. The curve will look something like this. It'll start out at maximum error about the same as our in-sample line, and as we go down, it'll begin to diverge like this. Now in this region, both our in-sample and out-of-sample errors are still decreasing. But eventually we'll reach a point where our out-of-sample error begins to increase. In fact, it may increase strongly. In this area, as we increase degrees of freedom, our in-sample error is decreasing, but our out-of-sample error is increasing. And that's how we define overfitting. This is the region where overfitting is occurring. So let me state that again. In-sample error is decreasing, out-of-sample error is increasing. When we have those two together, it's overfitting.
In this video, we're going to revisit our good friends decision trees, and more specifically, we're going to talk about decision tree pruning. At a high level, this is a way to avoid overfitting your decision tree, which means making it way too specific to your training data so that it's more generalized and more able to deal with your testing data in a more dynamic and robust way. Okay? That's a very high level description. And I thought about it, and I think the best way to talk about this is literally just to go through an example. So here, again, our familiar setup of trying to decide whether a mystery fish is a salmon or a tuna. So you see in the very beginning, I just have 10 salmon and 10 tuna. And in my decision tree, by asking a series of questions, I get to my leaf nodes, which contain a variable number of salmon and tuna. For this example, I have 3 variables, and I'm not very creative in my naming. They're just called V1, V2, and V3. And they're binary variables, so they just have 2 different possibilities. I've denoted them by saying V1 would be saying basically yes, answering yes to the V1 variable. And this little symbol, if you haven't seen it before, that one right there, is not. That shows up sometimes in computer science or math. So this right branch would be saying no to the V1 variable. This is no to the V3 variable. So let's go ahead and analyze the structure of this decision tree a little bit before we talk about the pruning. And this is going to help us to talk about some more dynamics of decision trees maybe we didn't talk about in the intro video. So let's just go through it. So we see that the first thing is that it says yes or no to V1. So let's say we go down the yes V1 route. We see there's 7 salmon and 3 tuna here. The next thing it does here is say yes or no to V2. Let's say we say yes to V2. We go down here. There's 4 salmon and 2 tuna here. And let's say we say no to V3. So we have 2 salmon and 1 tuna here. So at this point, that's all our variables are used up. And here we would basically just decide whether it's a salmon or a tuna by making a 2/3 guess it's a salmon, right? Because there's 2 salmon and 1 tuna, so 2 over the total 3. And a 1/3 guess that it's a tuna. And similarly, we do for all the other leaf nodes here. This is a terminology I didn't use before, but each of these things in gray boxes are called leaf nodes because it's a tree and these are the leaves, all right? So similarly here, we would have 3 salmon and 1 tuna, so we'd make a 75% guess it's a salmon, 25% guess it's a tuna, and that's basically how it works. One thing I do want to point out is that once the decision tree branches, we can split on different variables. For example, here we split on V1. This branch right here is on V3, but its corresponding sister branch over here is on V2. So once the tree branches, you don't have to branch on the same symmetrical object or variable each time. Okay, that's one thing I wanted to make very clear. Now, there's a couple things about this decision tree that are kind of sketchy. One of the biggest things you probably notice are some leaf nodes, namely this guy and this guy, contain no observations. So what's the point of even branching? Which means that, let's say if I'm right here and I'm deciding whether to branch on V2 or not, if I do branch on V2, I'm basically just going to end up in a case where I'm in no different than where I was before. So here I was at 1 salmon, 1 tuna. Here I'm at 1 salmon, 1 tuna. So why did I even branch? So that's something we're going to keep in mind. Another thing we'll keep in mind, this is a little more subtle, but right here we see that we have 4 salmon and 2 tuna, so the distribution is kind of like 2/3 and 1/3. If I branch, I do get a different number of results. I get 2 salmon and 1 tuna, 2 salmon, 1 tuna, but the distribution is the same. They're still 2/3. So I don't really gain any predictive accuracy by making this branch. It's just kind of a waste of time and complexity for me. So we already see that maybe these are some places where we can prune the decision tree, which means don't bother taking the branch, just end it right there and you can make a decision. But maybe there's some other places in the whole tree where I can prune earlier as well, where making that decision might not help me or might help me in such a small way that it's not even worth it. So that is the crux of this thing. There's 2 different ways of decision tree pruning. The way we're talking about right here would be pre-pruning, which is when you get to a certain branch, you need to make the decision about whether to branch or not based on how much more accuracy or more predictive power you're going to get by taking that route or not taking that route. That is called pre-pruning. And that's going to be what we're going to be going through in this video. There's a different way to do it, which is actually considered more robust, which is post-pruning, which is where you literally build out this entire tree, as we've done here, and then you go through it and figure out which branches are weak and don't need to be included. Of course, that's more computationally expensive because you have to build the whole tree and then go search through it, rather than do this process as you're building the tree. But we'll talk about at the end why post-pruning has a couple of advantages. But again, this video is on pre-pruning because it's more simple. We'll make a separate video on post-pruning later on. So let's go ahead and get right into it. I've put a couple numbers here in purple, 1, 2, 3, and 4. These are the ones, places we're going to talk about whether we want to branch or just end the decision tree right there. Let's talk about number 1 first, the simplest one. Right here, before we do anything to the decision tree, we have 10 salmon and 10 tuna. So that we have basically a 50% chance of getting it correct if we just guess blindly, right? Now, let's go ahead and look at what happens if we decide to split on 1. Here we would have 7 salmon and we have 3 tuna. Here we have 3 salmon and 7 tuna. As we saw in the introductory decision trees video, whenever you have this symmetry, the predictive power at both nodes are going to be the same. In this case, they're both 58%. If you're wondering how I got that number, it's basically just by doing this 7 over 10, which is 70% squared, plus 30% squared. Go ahead and watch the first decision tree videos. That calculation doesn't make sense to you, okay? So basically, I have a 58% chance of getting it correct if I'm at this node, 58% chance of getting it correct at this node, and there's a 50-50 shot of going to either one. Because there's 10 fish here, there's 10 fish here, right? So if I go ahead and incorporate all that data, I find out that if I do make this branch, I'll have a 58% chance of getting my fish correct, rather than 50% if I don't take the branch. Since that's an 8% gain, that's pretty significant, we're going to go ahead and say, yeah, we're going to go ahead and take that branch. So this kind of begs the question of, we need to set a threshold, right? We need to set some kind of limit for whether or not to branch based on how much more accuracy it gives us. You can really set it at whatever is comfortable to you, however important you value each extra piece of accuracy. For us, we're going to say 1%. So on the right corner here, I'm going to say if it's ever greater than or equal to 1% gain, we're going to keep it. If it's less than a 1% gain, we're going to not take that branch and just prune everything below and stop the decision tree right there. Okay, so let's go ahead and move forward. Now we've branched at 1, that's set. Now we're going to go ahead and look at, should we branch at 2? If we do the same calculation, now we have a 58% chance accuracy, right here, of getting it correct. If we go through the same calculation, now we're choosing whether or not to branch on V2 here. It gets a little more complicated because the first thing we do is maintain this 1/2 chance of 58%, which is ending up at that place right there. And then we need to go ahead and say we have a 1/2 chance, which is ending up at the left branch right here. But there's a subcalculation, which is a 60% chance, because this has 6 elements out of these 10 right here. So 60% chance, and the correctness right here would be 56%. And we have a 40% chance because this has 4 elements right here. And the correctness right here would be 63%. Sorry, that got a little bit muddled right there. That's a 63% chance of getting it correct if we're at that node right there. So when we do that calculation, we get 58.4%. So we see that, is it worth it going from 58% correctness to 58.4? Well, according to our 1% threshold, it's not, because this is only a 0.4% gain, so it's not enough for us to continue. So that's our first pruning right there. We're not going to take this V2 or not V2 branch. We're going to prune the decision tree right there. That's where it stops for that side, okay? But we still have a whole other side to consider. Here, should we split on V3 or not split on V3? And something I should mention really fast is that we're choosing V3 as the variable here instead of V2 because we're assuming that V3 gives us the best gain in accuracy of going forward. So basically what we're saying here is that we've surveyed all of our available variables, and we've said that V3 gives us the best accuracy gain, but that doesn't mean that it gives us enough to get past this 1% threshold. Let's see if it does. So 3, I've omitted these calculations here. You can go through them for yourself, but in 3, we're going from a 58% correctness to a 59.2% correctness. So this does exceed our 1% threshold. It's 1.2. So we keep that branch right here. We do go ahead and go down this branch. Now let's look at 4. Does 4 give us enough accuracy? That's going to be like going from a 59.2%. Remember, that's where we ended up in the last branch, to a 59.4%. That is just a 0.2% gain. That's not enough. So we're going to prune the tree right there. Notice I'm not even considering this one, right? Because we already talked about it. We said that if I branch right here, I'm basically not getting any new information. I'm basically just having a 0 bucket and a 1 bucket. So that is definitely getting pruned as well. So we've pruned here, and pruned here, but this whole decision tree is rather messy. So I've redrawn it right here, okay? So this is the ending decision tree. This was the beginning one right here. And notice how much cleaner, how much more simple it got in the end, okay? So this is our final decision tree where if you say yes to V1, you're done. If you say no to V1, you ask whether yes or no to V3, and then you're done either way. So this whole thing, remember, gives a 59.2% accuracy because that's where we ended up. We didn't opt to go for this extra 0.2. Versus if we kept the entire tree, if you did that whole calculation on our correctness, if we kept the entire tree, you would find that we would get a 59.8% accuracy. So basically, we're only giving up a minus 0.6%. So that's how much worse we're doing right here. But we've pruned a significant portion of the decision tree, which is going to help us computationally. It's going to help us to avoid overfitting, which means that our accuracy might actually go up with our true testing examples and so forth. So this is a very introductory video on pre-pruning decision trees. Now I promised to talk about why pre-pruning might have some issues that post-pruning might address. Basically the issue with pre-pruning is, let's say that this tree was much, much, much bigger, right? So there's always a chance that I would have cut a tree early because right there, it wasn't giving me any extra gain in accuracy. But down the line, so if I had not pruned it and I kept going down the line, there's a chance that there was a branch further down that does give me a good increase in accuracy. It's just that I never got to it because that parent branch right here was not doing the trick for me, so I just cut it early. So in that way, pre-pruning is kind of a greedy method. It gets rid of branches early on, which may prove profitable down the line. But in exchange, we get a very simple and more efficient pruning method. Post-pruning would build up that entire tree and search for these little minutia details ahead of time so that it's not making those mistakes, which means that it's more computationally expensive, but it's potentially going to give you a better accuracy.
이번 시간에는 방금 전에 시청하신 디시전 트리의 오버피팅과 프루닝에 대해서 좀 더 살펴보도록 하겠습니다. 참고 동영상은 특별히 언급되지 않는 한 시험 범위에 포함되지 않습니다. 클래시피케이션 에러에는 다음 세 종류가 있습니다. 트레이닝 에러는 트레이닝 데이터셋에 있는 에러로 인해 발생하는 것입니다. 테스트 에러는 테스트 데이터셋에 있는 에러로 인한 것입니다. 제너럴라이제이션 에러는 같은 디스트리뷰션에서도 모델을 랜덤하게 셀렉트하다 보면 모델을 구성하는 과정에서 생기는 에러입니다. 다음은 오버피팅과 프루닝을 설명하기 위한 데이터셋 사례입니다. 빨간색은 5400개 인스턴스로 가우시안 디스트리뷰션을 갖고 있습니다. 파란색도 5400개 인스턴스인데 5000개는 가우시안 디스트리뷰션이고 400개는 노이즈 인스턴스들입니다. 디시전 트리에서 노드의 숫자가 증가하면서 에러가 감소하는 것을 볼 수 있습니다. 에러는 0.5에서 0.1까지 급격히 감소한 뒤 0.1부터는 0으로 서서히 감소하는 것을 알 수 있습니다. 다음은 트레이닝 에러가 0.1일 때의 디시전 트리입니다. 노드 개수가 4개인 것을 알 수 있습니다. 오른쪽 그림은 선포도인데 디시전 트리의 4개의 노드가 4개의 바운더리를 형성하고 있음을 보여줍니다. 다음은 50개의 노드를 가진 디시전 트리와 디시전 바운더리들입니다. 트레이닝 에러는 0.1에서 0.07 정도로 다소 감소했지만 디시전 트리와 디시전 바운더리는 매우 복잡한 구조를 갖고 있음을 보여줍니다. 우리는 여기서 which tree is better? 어떤 트리가 더 나은지에 대해서 질문을 던질 수 있습니다. 에러가 작은 것만이 반드시 좋은 선택은 아니라는 뜻입니다. 모델 오버피팅은 모델 과잉 접합입니다. 왼쪽 그래프는 트레인 에러와 테스트 에러가 거의 유사한 것을 알 수 있는데 이 경우에 노드의 개수는 0부터 10까지입니다. 오른쪽 그래프는 노드의 개수를 훨씬 늘려서 0부터 150까지 그래프를 나타낸 것입니다. 트레이닝 에러가 0.1에 근접할 때까지는 테스트 에러와 거의 같은 현상을 보이지만 트레이닝 에러가 0.1에서 0으로 근접하면서 테스트 에러는 오히려 증가하는 것을 볼 수 있습니다. 언더피팅은 부적 적합이라고 하는데 모델이 너무 간단한 경우에 트레이닝과 테스트 에러가 크게 나타납니다. 오버피팅은 과잉 적합이라고 하는데 모델이 복잡할 경우에 트레이닝 에러는 작더라도 테스트 에러는 크게 나타나는 현상입니다. 오버피팅이 일어난 왼쪽 사례에서 트레이닝 데이터를 2배로 했을 경우 오른쪽 그래프처럼 트레이닝 에러와 테스트 에러가 근접하게 됩니다. 디시전 트리의 노드 개수가 50개인 경우 트레이닝 데이터의 개수가 적은 경우에는 왼쪽 그래프처럼 디시전 바운더리가 복잡한 구조를 갖지만 데이터 개수가 충분히 많은 경우에는 오른쪽 그래프처럼 디시전 바운더리가 잘 정리되어 있습니다. 그 결과 트레이닝 에러와 테스트 에러가 근접하게 되면서 오버피팅 문제가 사라지게 됩니다. 요약하면 모델의 오버피팅의 원인은 첫째로 limited training size, 트레이닝 데이터 크기가 너무 작은 것입니다. 두 번째로 high model complexity, 모델의 복잡도가 불필요하게 너무 높은 것입니다. multiple comparison procedure, 여러 번 비교 절차를 거치게 됩니다. Overfitting은 results in decision trees that are more complex than necessary, 필요 이상으로 복잡한 decision tree를 만들어냅니다. Training error does not provide a good estimate, 트레이닝 에러는 좋은 추정치를 만들어내지 못합니다. of how well the tree will perform on previously unseen record, 이전에 보지 못한 레코드에 대해서 트리가 어떻게 수행할지에 대한 추정치입니다. Need ways for estimating generalization errors, generalization error를 추정할 수 있는 방법들이 필요합니다. 따라서 오버피팅이 없는 모델 셀렉션이 필요합니다. perform during model building. 모델을 만드는 동안에도 이를 수행할 수 있습니다. Purpose is to ensure that model is not overly complex. 목적은 모델이 지나치게 복잡하지 않도록 하는 것입니다. To avoid overfitting. 그래서 오버피팅을 피하도록 합니다. Need to estimate generalization error. generalization error를 추정할 수 있어야 됩니다. Using validation set. validation set이라는 것을 정의해서 사용하겠습니다. Incorporating model complexity. 모델의 복잡도를 에러를 계산하는 데 반영하겠습니다. Estimating statistical bounds. 통계적 한계치를 추정하도록 하겠습니다. Using validation set. validation set을 사용하는 것입니다. Divide training data into two parts. 트레이닝 데이터를 다음에 두 개로 나눕니다. Training set은 used for model building. 이전처럼 모델을 만드는 데 사용합니다. Validation set. 새롭게 추가된 validation set은 used for estimating generalization error. generalization error를 추정하기 위해서 사용됩니다. 이때 validation set은 not the same as test set. test set과는 다른 것입니다. drawback. 단점은 less data available for training. 트레이닝에 더 적은 데이터가 사용된다는 점입니다. 모델 컴플렉시티를 반영하는 데 있어서의 rational, 이론적 해석은 오캄스 레이저입니다. 두 개의 모델이 유사한 generalization error를 갖고 있으면 간단한 모델을 더 복잡한 모델보다 선호한다는 것입니다. 컴플렉스 모델은 트레이닝 데이터에 맞게 우연하게 피팅되었을 수도 있습니다. 그러므로 모델 컴플렉시티를 모델을 평가할 때 반영해야 됩니다. 아래 식을 보면 generalization error는 트레이닝 에러에 모델의 컴플렉시티에 알파 값을 곱한 것을 더한 것임을 알 수 있습니다. 여기서 알파 값은 컴플렉시티를 어느 정도 반영할 것인가를 결정하는 것입니다. decision tree에서 모델 셀렉션을 하는 방법입니다. 프리프루닝은 early stopping 룰이라고 하는데 나무가 full grown tree로 자라기 전에 나뭇가지를 자르듯이 알고리즘으로 스톱하는 것입니다. Typically stopping conditions for a node. 노드에서 스토핑하는 컨디션을 지정합니다. Stop if all instances belong to the same class. 모든 인스턴스가 같은 클래스에 속하면 스톱합니다. Stop if all the attribute values are the same. attribute 속성값들이 모두 같으면 스톱합니다. More restrictive conditions. 더 제한적인 조건은 Stop if number of instances is less than some user specified threshold. 인스턴스 숫자가 사용자가 지정한 문턱 threshold보다 작을 경우에 스톱합니다. Stop if class distribution of instances are independent of the available features. 인스턴스의 클래스 분포가 피처와 서로 독립적일 때 스톱합니다. 예를 들면 칼스퀘어 테스트 등을 활용할 수 있습니다. Stop if expanding the current node does not improve impurity measures. 쥔이나 information gain을 사용해서 얻는 것이 없을 때 스톱할 수 있습니다. Stop if estimated generalization error falls below certain threshold. generalization error가 threshold보다 작을 때 스톱합니다. post pruning은 pre pruning과 반대로 decision tree를 완전히 grow합니다. 다음에 subtree replacement를 합니다. Trim the nodes of the decision tree in a bottom-up fashion. bottom인 leaf부터 시작해서 루트까지 프루닝을 계속해 나갑니다. If generalization error improves after trimming. trimming 다음에 에러가 개선되면 replace subtree by a leaf node. subtree를 leaf node로 대체합니다. class label of leaf node. leaf node의 class label은 determined from majority class of instances in the subtree. subtree의 다수의 클래스 인스턴스로부터 결정됩니다. voting하는 방법을 사용하면 됩니다. subtree raising은 replace subtree with most frequently used branch. 가장 빈번하게 사용되는 브랜치를 선택해서 트리를 레이징하는 것입니다.